On December 10th, 2009, a routine training exercise at Fort Bragg turned into a nightmare. Private First Class Daniel Mercer, a 22-year-old paratrooper from Texas, was among the men preparing for a standard jump. He had completed dozens of successful drops, confident and calm as he stepped toward the aircraft. The plane reached altitude, the red light above the hatch blinking as the men awaited the green. Outside, crosswinds were stronger than expected, but the signal to jump was given anyway. Mercer's parachute cord twisted midair, tangling around his arm as he tried desperately to free it. The canopy failed to open fully, and his descent accelerated toward the drop zone. Fellow jumpers shouted through radios, helplessly watching him spiral out of control. Mercer hit the ground seconds later with catastrophic force, his chute trailing uselessly behind him. Medics rushed across the field as instructors screamed for a cease jump order. CPR was performed for several minutes, but Mercer never regained consciousness. The training exercise was immediately halted as officers gathered around the scene in silence. An investigation later revealed that the parachute had been packed incorrectly during prep. It was a mistake that could have been caught with a single inspection. Fellow soldiers described Mercer as disciplined, kind, and always the first to volunteer. His death was ruled an accident, but it left a permanent scar on the regiment. Training protocols were rewritten, requiring dual checks on every parachute pack. For many at Fort Bragg, Daniel Mercer's final jump became a haunting lesson in vigilance. On August 3, 2016, a routine live-fire drill at Fort Hood spiraled into disaster. Sergeant William Cross, a 28-year-old tank commander, had been leading his crew through standard firing exercises. His crew had performed the maneuver hundreds of times without incident. But that morning, the Texas heat was brutal, baking the metal vehicles to near scorching temperatures. When Cross gave the signal to fire, the shell jammed halfway into the breach. The crew halted immediately, following safety protocol to clear the obstruction. But before the system could vent pressure, a spark ignited inside the turret. The explosion was instantaneous, ripping through the armored compartment. Nearby soldiers hit the ground as fragments of shrapnel whizzed across the range. Emergency crews raced in within seconds, but the tank was already engulfed in flames. 2 crew members were pulled out alive but severely burned. Cross never made it out. The fire took 30 minutes to extinguish, leaving only a blackened shell of metal. Investigators later determined that a faulty shell primer had triggered the blast. The ammunition batch was immediately recalled across all training facilities. Sergeant Cross had served 3 tours overseas and was weeks away from his wedding. His fiancée attended the base memorial where hundreds gathered in full uniform. The military introduced new ammo safety checks in his name, the Cross Protocol. His death became a lasting reminder that even the safest drills carry hidden danger. On March 12, 2018, a nighttime training mission off the coast of Hawaii took a fatal turn. Staff Sergeant Luke Hanley, 30, was aboard a Black Hawk helicopter running routine maritime drills. The weather forecast had warned of shifting winds, but the mission was cleared to continue. As they flew low over the water, visibility dropped to almost zero. The pilot struggled to maintain altitude as turbulence slammed against the rotor blades. A warning light flickered, engine temperature spiking beyond safe levels. Seconds later, the right engine failed completely, sending the craft spinning sideways. Hanley shouted to brace as the Black Hawk plunged toward the churning ocean. The aircraft hit the water nose first, breaking apart on impact. Rescue crews from a nearby ship reached the site within minutes. 2 soldiers were found clinging to wreckage, but Hanley was missing. Divers located his body hours later, still strapped in his harness at the seabed. The investigation revealed that salt corrosion had weakened the engine mount. Maintenance records showed the issue had been reported, but never prioritized. Hanley had served 12 years, known for mentoring younger recruits in aviation safety. His squadron held a sunset vigil on the beach, laying flowers near the waves. The Army implemented stricter corrosion inspections for all coastal flight units. Hanley's final flight became a symbol of how small oversights can claim even the best prepared. On November 5, 2014, a submarine training mission in the North Atlantic ended in catastrophe. Petty Officer Ethan Ward, 26, was part of a maintenance team aboard the USS Hartford. The drill involved sealing compartments to simulate flooding, a routine safety exercise. Communication lines briefly dropped between control and the engine room. Ward was still inside the lower deck section when the automated lock sequence began. He radioed that he was still inside, but the signal cut off mid-sentence. Water began leaking through a valve used for pressure testing, faster than expected. Ward tried to reach the manual override, but the handle jammed halfway. Within minutes, freezing seawater filled the chamber waist deep. Crew members outside banged on the hatch, unable to override the system from their side. Inside, Ward climbed onto a ladder, shouting for help as the water reached his chest. By the time technicians cut power to the automatic locks, the chamber was already full. Divers entered minutes later, retrieving his body still gripping the release valve. Investigators found a software glitch that failed to halt the locking mechanism. The malfunction had been flagged in earlier drills, but never fully corrected. Ward's death shook the Navy's training division and halted all compartment drills for weeks. A new manual override system was introduced, ensuring no one could be sealed inside again. For sailors who train beneath the waves, his final moments remain a haunting warning. On July 19, 2011, a live-fire night exercise in Nevada went horribly wrong. Corporal James Dwyer, 25, was part of a squad practicing target marking for aerial support. The training was meant to simulate real combat, with aircraft dropping dummy bombs near marked zones. A minor miscommunication switched the coordinates with a nearby live-fire grid. No one realized the mistake until the pilot received clearance for a live missile strike. On the ground, Dwyer adjusted his laser, aligning it perfectly on a mock target vehicle. Seconds later, the radio crackled with the words "target locked." A flash illuminated the sky as a real Hellfire missile descended toward their position. Dwyer had just enough time to shout before the explosion consumed the range. The blast tore through the sand, scattering debris and gear across the desert floor. Medics rushed from the perimeter, dragging survivors out of the blast radius. Dwyer was found only a few meters from the impact zone, fatally wounded. The pilot was devastated upon learning the coordinates had been entered wrong. An investigation confirmed a single-digit typo in the GPS relay caused the strike. The training range temporarily shut down all night fire exercises for review. Dwyer's squadron honored him as a soldier who followed every rule, yet paid the ultimate price. His name was engraved on a plaque inside the base control tower. His death reminded every pilot and soldier that one wrong number can mean life or death. On May 23, 2017, a standard grenade training exercise at Camp Pendleton turned deadly. Private Michael Torres, a 19-year-old Marine in basic training, had never thrown a live grenade before. The instructor demonstrated proper form, pull, throw, and drop to cover. When Torres stepped forward for his turn, the range fell silent. He pulled the pin, but his grip slipped as he prepared to throw. The live explosive bounced off the wall in front of him, rolling back toward his feet. "Grenade," the instructor shouted, lunging toward him without hesitation. The explosion went off less than 2 seconds later. The shockwave threw dirt and debris across the entire bunker. When the dust cleared, the instructor lay motionless beside Torres' position. Medics sprinted in, performing emergency aid as the range alarms blared. Torres survived the blast but was critically injured. His instructor died shielding him. The incident was later traced to improper handling under stress, not equipment failure. Training footage confirmed the instructor had pushed Torres down a split second before detonation. The Marine Corps posthumously awarded him the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for Heroism. Torres later recovered and attended the memorial in a wheelchair, visibly shaken. The grenade range was redesigned with reinforced safety pits and new shield barriers. For every recruit since, that day's lesson stands clear. Courage sometimes costs everything.